Okay, well, lecture 13, part 2 is on composition of functions. We did go over this last year when we were talking about it. This is your f open circle g function. And we talked about this open circle and what it means. And f open circle g of x means f of g of x. Okay, so essentially what's happening for this here is that your g function is plugged into your f function. Okay, so our g is going to be plugged into our f. Now, Dr. Delaware on his videos talks about what exactly this g open circle f function, or sorry, f open circle g function actually means. And this is going to be important for when we talk about finding our domain and stuff like that, which we will do in the second video. So this big machine f open circle g of x, okay, well, it is really two smaller functions on the inside of it, okay? And the first function that you deal with is that g of x function, okay? So your x will start on the outside, and when it goes into this machine, the first thing that it goes into is your g of x function. So what pops out of our g of x function is our output, which would be g of x. Then after that, it goes into the second part of your function, which is the f of x function. So g of x gets plugged into your f of x function, and then what comes out on the other side is f of, and what got plugged into your f? Well, that is your g of x, okay? So the important part of what we need to know is that right here, the first thing that your x goes into as far as checking its domain is this g function right there. So when x goes into g, we have to worry and make sure that that x fits in the domain of that. Then your g of x part gets plugged into your f, and we got to make sure that that works there as well. And we will kind of revisit this when we go back to the second video, which will be finding the domain for these here. But I do want to do one quick practice example with you guys here. So composition of functions, I'm not sure what this is doing here. This isn't good. Of course, I try to be responsible and do this on the weekend. Okay, well, whatever. Working now. Okay, so let's try an example of this then. Okay, we've got f of x equals 1 over x plus 3, and we have g of x equals 1 over x minus 1. They want us to find f open circle g of x. The first thing that you need to do for this is rewrite it. The first thing is to always rewrite this function here. So this is f of g of x, and that means that my g of x function is going to need to get plugged into my f function. So we have f of g of x, which our f of x function, which we can see over here, is 1 over x plus 3, okay? And when we deal with functions here, normally there's an x, but there's a g of x here, which means that we have to have a g of x over here in this spot as well, okay? Well, what is our g of x function? Well, your g of x function is 1 over x minus 4. So we are really just plugging in 1 over x minus 4 in for that x there. Okay, and this is our first step here that you guys have to show, how it is plugged in. So I always rewrite so that you can see what is going in where, okay? And then we just plug it in. And now we just need to simplify. Okay, now last year when we did these, we did a lot where it was just kind of distribute and then combine like terms. These are going to be a little bit more difficult. So if I'm trying to simplify this here, okay, I need to remember that that 3 is really just a 3 over 1, and we need to get a common denominator. So I would want to multiply this times x minus 4 and x minus 4 on top. So now their denominators are the same. We have a 1 over x minus 4 plus a 3x minus 12 over x minus 4. Okay? Which these have the same denominator. So since they have the same denominator, I can really just write this, as just one fraction with an x minus 4 on the bottom. So this is really 1 over 3x minus 11 over x minus 4. Okay, now the last thing that we need to do, remember this is a big one on top. So that is a fraction over a fraction. So essentially we have a 1 over 1 divided by a 3x minus 11 over x minus 4. And we know that when we are dividing, okay, that's really multiplying by the reciprocal. And since you're taking this times 1, we just end up with x minus 4 over 3x minus 11. Okay, so the important part is remembering what that F open circle G of x means, how we plug that in. Okay, and then after that, we will do plenty of problems here to practice simplifying these things as we go. Okay, but that is how you do your composition of functions.